Nasdaq here. So as some of you know me, Ivana had the listings and capital markets efforts for Latin America at Nasdaq. And I would say that the best part of my job is that I get a lot of time spending talking with interesting entrepreneurs, interesting companies, and actually bringing them to do an IPO in the US on Nasdaq. So I love to watch all this journey. And today is great because we're just gonna do that today. We have 3 amazing entrepreneurs, and so we're gonna have a great conversation with them. So I also need your help with questions. So let's bring the questions, and I think it's gonna be a great conversation. So to start, why don't we get you to tell about you and the companies you started? Pedro.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Margarita, for the invitation. Thank you all for having us today. I'm Pedro. I'm a healthcare entrepreneur in Brazil. And a little story about myself. I started working with healthcare back in 2014 with my 2 co-founders. By that time, we were in our first year at college. We know almost nothing about healthcare or being an entrepreneur. We're like a 0 founder by that time. And we created an electronic medical record platform, so a software as a service, focused on small and medium clinics. It's funny because we had no money by that moment, no venture capitals backing us because we're really young. And I remember that my email was like pedrodias.vita@gmail.com. We even had money to pay for the Google domain, so it was really hard in the beginning. But we started with 100 clients, physicians. We grew that number fast, and 3 years after, we had like one of the top 3 software as a service focused on primary care in Brazil. We sold that business to Stonco in 2020, and which was really important for us. I left college by that moment. People always ask me if it was hard to tell my parents about that. But there's a funny story that our first investor was Claudio Haddad, that is founder of Inspire, our college, and the only thing he asked us in the beginning was to don't left school. And so it was very hard to talk to him and say they were gonna drop out Inspire, but we did that, was a good choice. Now I'm one of the founders and co-CEO of Mevo. It's an electronic medical prescription infrastructure for healthcare providers in Brazil. So here in the US, it's completely different. Some people don't know, but there's a company here called SureScript. They're like a monopoly. They generate 1.9 billion prescriptions for 97% of the US population. And Brazil is one of the top 10 pharmacy markets in the world, with 200 million Brazilians, over 1 billion prescriptions, and like 95% of that is still on paper. So there's a huge addressable market to attack. So we are now serving like 12% of the private hospitals in Brazil, helping them to kill the paper prescription. And we are putting a digital prescription in the hands of the patients. So now it's like an Amazon pharmacy solution combined with the SureScript's infrastructure. So the people can receive the prescription and they can click on a button and in just a few clicks transform the prescription in a purchase basket. We have a fulfillment center in São Paulo, so we're responsible by the inventory, the delivery, the last mile. And we just want to expand that for a lot of Brazilians and change that number. I want like 5% of prescriptions on paper, like 10 years from now, and not 95. And yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Yeah, first of all, thank you everyone for being here, and Margarita to invite us. It's a great honor to represent VOLTZ. Kind of very, let's say, strange thing. One vehicle company try to disrupt the motorcycle market in Brazil. Talk a little bit about my history. I used to work for InBev. I dropped off at 2013 because my wife, at the time my girlfriend got pregnant, and I couldn't move, and I didn't have more mobility to grow and be as active in InBev. And the only idea, I didn't want to work to anyone else, so I want to be an entrepreneur. The only idea that has it was for my grandfather, my father-in-law, to be importer and distributor of motorcycle parts. Very underground business. Nobody, if I ask here, oh, have you heard about motorcycle parts? No one really imagine what is this. But it's a huge market that 16% of the bikes, motorcycle in Brazil in general, don't do any after sales in the dealership, they do in the third-party mechanic. So I started in 2013 with that, but in 2017 we figured out that there is a niche of motorcycle in Brazil that was growing very fast, that is mopeds, scooters. And then when we saw it, because we need to figure out which of parts is selling the most, we just figured out that okay, mopeds, gasoline mopeds in Brazil is already expired, right? Because in Asia it's all electric. Europe, right, is being disrupted by electric scooters. So then we start. That's why it's become the idea of VOLTZ with mopeds at that time. But as soon as we start, we figure out that many things that need to be disrupted in order to sell a motorcycle in Brazil. It's not selling a motorcycle, it's selling credit first. So we define our business as we need to build a smart motorcycle that we can disrupt the whole ecosystem of financing, bring the interest rate down, insurance that doesn't exist in Brazil, is only 2%. The bike become more affordable because the battery costs 40%, so we have now, I don't know if you guys have seen, but we already have like 300 units of motorcycle running in Brazil, exchanging battery, like a swapping battery in a machine with iFood. I don't know if you guys already have asked or any iFood, it was delivered by our bikes. And this is the theory. The theory is like we want to invent a lot of hardware on the bike that we can become more affordable to buy it, but at the same time offer disrupt like the financing, insurance, and the whole ecosystem, carbon credit, etc. That can bring together with the bike. So the bike is only the one, like you give the bike and bring more lifetime value to the company. This is the theory of the VOLTZ. We already reached around 24,000 units of sales in Brazil. That was really amazing. We really surprised. So we really very fast built our factory in Brazil, in Manaus, and we already have around 8,000 units of bike and this backlog to delivery in Brazil. This is roughly the history.
Excellent. Carlos.
Cool. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again, Margarita, for the invite. So, I guess a little bit of myself. I'm originally from Peru. My father is a geologist in the oil business, and I grew up mostly abroad as a kid. So my family moved to Bolivia when I was 4, and then we moved to Venezuela, to Saudi Arabia, and to Brazil. I graduated from the American School in Rio. Came to college in the U.S. at the University of Virginia. A little bit older, I think, than my fellow founders here on stage. So back in 2004, when I went to college, studied economics and foreign affairs. That was the thing to do. And in 2008, when I graduated, I took a job in Wall Street at UBS to do investment banking. And right then, Lehman failed, and I realized that financial services and major macro corrections happen, and things don't always go up, just like we're seeing now, right? So I think a good entry point into a career, right, to get baptism by fire in a way with a major correction. I managed to stay in New York for about 5 years. In 2013, I realized that a more corporate trajectory wasn't really for me, and I wanted to pursue something more entrepreneurial. at the time, an opportunity came up to join a Brazilian company, actually in Mexico, as a country manager. That company was backed by some German guys that were doing a lot of tech things in Latin America back in the day before it became something really cool to do. It was the Rocket Internet guys. The company was Easy Taxi. So I was intrigued by it, and I took the job, and I think my father still thinks I'm a little bit crazy for doing that, right? And call him and say, hey, I'm leaving a high-paying job in New York to go work at a mobility app, a taxi app in Mexico. And he was like, are you nuts? Like, what's going on? But having lived through that crisis and seeing how a lot of the tech companies in the US were the ones that were recovering fastest from the crisis, and also seeing how a lot of the people that I knew in college were migrating to Silicon Valley, leaving banking jobs in New York to join companies that at the time were starting out, right? Like Uber, Airbnb, companies like Facebook were IPOing. So I said, well, there's probably a world where some of this trickles down to Latin America at some point, and these guys seem to be doing what Uber's doing in the US, so it makes sense. And I took the job, and I'm really glad I did, because I never looked back. Since then, I was a little bit early, I guess. It definitely took time for that momentum to really reach Latin America. And Mexico City certainly was a very nascent ecosystem back in 2013, 14, 15 while I was there. But got to meet a lot of what some folks here are calling now those founders of today that were operating companies back then. A lot of them, backed by funds from Europe, some local funds as well. The family offices weren't really into the tech scene that much back then. But it was a great experience. After Mexico, I moved to Miami. Took a job there at a company builder called Rocker. And then one of the companies we invested in, was a company Fleet, was actually a company from Silicon Valley that does advanced analytics. They were looking for a head of growth, so I said, okay, well, this sounds like a good opportunity, and they're really looking to open up the Brazilian market. So I started traveling a lot to Brazil in 2018, 19. And while doing that, I discovered a very vibrant ecosystem, right? Nubank, the Loft guys were getting started, and there was just a lot of buzz, a lot of folks also that had been living abroad, going back to Brazil. A lot of folks that had studied at great business schools in the U.S. and Europe, starting businesses. A lot of big funds also getting involved with companies there. So being back in Brazil was great. And building out Fleet's operation in Brazil was also great. Started working with big banks like Itaú, Logo, B2W, and some others, building a great team. And while doing that, one day a friend of mine from Switzerland calls me and says, "Hey Carlos, we're structuring some secondary transactions for our clients here in Zurich and Europe. Maybe there's an angle that some Latin American clients would also like that exposure into." Late stage pre-IPO equity. I really didn't know much about it then. I said, okay, well, let's give it a spin and see what happens. And the first allocation that they had was Palantir. We successfully brought a couple of investors into the SPV that was carrying that equity. And we did an allocation in Coinbase, and we did one in Robinhood. And then at that point, Edward, my co-founder, and I kind of got the gist of the deal. And we said, well, this could be something that, if these folks in Brazil are interested in these equities in late-stage American companies, perhaps there's also an angle where some of these Latin American companies that are now maturing and are looking at capital markets in the U.S. Also are attractive investment opportunities. Right? The first opportunity I had was Nubank, and we successfully, well, first of all, we started looking for Nubank, right? And like most founders, David is very hermetic. It was captive, well, now it's public, so it doesn't really matter. But at the time, everyone said, no, it's impossible. Only the big funds are getting in, and there's no way you guys are going to be able to get that transaction done. But we kept trying, fighting a good fight, until we talked to the ex-head of investor relations in Nubank, Mauro, who's now one of our angel investors. He said, guys, there is a way to do it. We have a WhatsApp group where all the ex-employees of Nubank that vested equity are in. A lot of them are building businesses now, so they need that liquidity. And David, he gives us a thumbs up, and we're able to structure something. So we worked it out. We successfully did that transaction right around the time Warren Buffett got in, so it was very successful. But that's when Ed and I sat down and kind of dropped everything else we were doing and said, listen, there's no way these transactions should be happening on WhatsApp, right? In a world where technology can make it easier. And on one side we have investors that are interested in this equity, and on the other side we have people that build those companies and are now building other companies, and they're paper-rich, liquidity poor, right? They don't have money to maybe buy a home, start a business, put kids through school. So that's how Velvet was born a little over a year ago now. We managed to secure a seed round with Global Founders Capital, the same Germans in another form, coming in on a seed round as lead investor, along with some angels, including Ed Weevil, co-founder of Nubank, Patrick Seagrease, the co-founder of iFood and Nomad, and some others. And set out to build a great team. We picked up $200 million in warehouse financing at the beginning of the year. We've conducted already some great secondary deals with Quintondar, Nuvem Shop, we've done Cobalto in Mexico, and also Open in India, which is a very exciting ecosystem. It's a little bit of the story. I'm glad to be here.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, I know that here, we have a great record on the secondary transactions. We at Nasdaq, we have the Nasdaq private market. They also facilitate a lot of the deals. So you talked to me about this platform. Can you exactly tell everyone here who are the constituents of this ecosystem? How does it work? So you are a founder, and you wanted to provide some liquidity for some early employees, early investors. So walk us through this process.
Yeah, so when we started Velvet, it was very much thinking about building an actual marketplace and being able to connect with those two parties, right? On one side, people holding that equity, mostly ex-employees, current employees also of these companies. On the other side, folks interested in investing in these companies. And out of all the personas involved, so the constituents, right, in that equation, the most important at the end of the day is the founder of the company, right, because he controls the cap table, and he doesn't want anybody holding the equity of the company. Right? At the same time, to that founder, the most important resource in the journey of building a great company is the talent that they are able to attract and retain, right? So when you look at, as Hans was saying, a lot of folks leaving investment banking, consulting jobs and whatnot, joining these high growth companies, investing equity that all of a sudden becomes very valuable, the founder of that company needs to do something to retain those employees, right? And as companies take longer to go public, we look at the model of compensating employees with equity stock options, which is largely done here in Silicon Valley. Companies were going public in a 3 to 5 year time frame, right? So the 4-year vesting, 1-year cliff, all of that makes sense. Now companies stayed private for 8, 12 years in some cases. That model doesn't quite work, right? Because you have these really high performers, really ambitious, very well connected people that are working at these companies. All of a sudden, they're saying, okay, well, I need a big payday, right? So companies organize tender offers, but there isn't visibility on giving those people liquidity, right? So what we've built is a liquidity as a benefit program where basically the company can sell to their employees, listen, once a year there's going to be a liquidity event where you're able to sell a piece of that participation in the company so that they can get some liquidity on their equity. And that's the way we're working. And then on the back end, we build the structure and the SPVs in order to absorb that equity and to be able to distribute it with private banking and multifamily office investors.
Thank you. So I go to Pedro now. Tell us about the healthcare startup scene in Brazil and how the technology is, innovating this such a traditional, sector.
I think, pandemic actually was something that helped technology, unlock technology in the healthcare space in Brazil. For since we started in 2014 until 2019 was really difficult, like to get inside the hospital institutions, the healthcare providers, the insurance companies. I think the market wasn't really prepared, so was challenging for us as business operators to like try to find the product market fit in a market that is not so open to it. Was difficult. I think it's different from like financial market and other places, but I think the pandemic changed that reality, and I think now this space is so much better for us as entrepreneurs. I think like in our case, we work with digital prescriptions for medications and exams, and two things that unlocked our business model was the telemedicine in Brazil was approved because of the pandemic, and it's impossible to have a telemedicine appointment without a digital prescription. So for our business specifically, that structure changed a lot, and also the regulatory change in the pharmacy space. In Brazil, before 2019, wasn't possible to buy a medicine, a control medicine, without having a paper prescription. So it was mandatory to have a paper prescription. So now that this have changed, it's better for us. And I'm seeing more like operators, entrepreneurs, and also venture capital firms back in healthcare companies in Brazil, which is also great. We just raised $10 million round in July. So even with the market so hard, with US investors backing us, so I think also venture capital is helping healthcare entrepreneurs and the whole scene of healthcare in Brazil. So I'm really excited about. I completely agree with what Hans said about like, I think healthcare, like we need more 10 years in Brazil to start seeing really great companies in the healthcare space because of early adopter thing. So if you have like hospital institutions, healthcare provider as your clients, the commercial cycle, the implementation cycle of your product is a challenge. So, and what I'm seeing now, and that's my final comment, the customers in Brazil, they are starting to understand that in the healthcare space they can have a better experience. So in our case, like we were used to for 100 years in Brazil, receive a paper and go in person to a brick and mortar store. And now we are seeing like patients, our NPS score is like from 90 to 100 for the past 6 months, I think, when we look to the end customer, because for the first time they are experienced to like buy their medicines online and receive in their houses, not needing to go to a brick and mortar store and not needing to hold a paper prescription where you don't know what the physician wrote to you. So, and that thing is happening in other spaces like Alice, Sami, our competitors as well. So I think now the customers in Brazil, the Brazilians are experiencing new solutions, and that's good because the end customer pushes the other place, the late adopters of the market.
Excellent. So I'll move to you, and so you are in this, EV sector. So what are the critical resources you need to get started? It's new sector industry in Brazil. So tell us about that.
Yeah. As I said, I started to work with VOLTZ back in 2014, and at that time, from 2014 until today, up to date, I have traveled to China maybe more than 30 times, and all the resources of electric. It's very interesting because all the resources of electric bike itself. I cannot say motorcycle. It's pretty interesting because different from the car. In China, they start the ones that make motorcycle came from bike, came from bike market, not a motorcycle company become electric motorcycle company. So the resources is very limited because of what we need in Brazil is actually a high performance bike, not the bikes that sell in China like mainstream 45 kilometers per hour, 60 maximum kilometers range. We need much more than that. And develop that and find that resource was the lead challenge at the beginning. And I also agree with what Hans said, and we are doing that right now. We are moving, because, I just come back from China in July, and always when I come back from China and I see what's going on with electric vehicle in China, and even comparing what I'm seeing here in San Francisco, I can tell you honestly that China maybe is like 10 years ahead in terms of numbers of brands in the street and etc. And then what we want to do with motorcycle is like close the gap between bike, motorcycle, and the cars, especially because we have a lot of things to do. And then we see in China a lot of opportunities of small companies doing like ADAS, advanced driver assistance system for cars, but also we can put in the bike and save more lives. This kind of things. So I think that is the right direction. I cannot go to China 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead maybe, and then return to Brazil and say, okay, let's close the gap. It's impossible. If you want to learn like something, you need to send people over there and hire people over there and collect this. So I think to build for us, or to build what we want to achieve in terms of high-speed motorcycle. I don't know. It's not like really high speed, but 300cc, 150cc. That is for the delivery guy, for the main people that use bike for transportation. In general, in Latin America, in Brazil, yeah, you need a lot of a very good powertrain system that is battery, motor, controller, VCU, etc. So in that, all of that is still in China. So, but much more strong in terms of in car, not in the motorcycle. So yeah, this is.
Yes. So I have to mention a little bit about the current market. We see the private market, private affecting private market. We still see a lot of dark crowd, especially from the VCs. So you guys actually raised capital, in 2022. I will start with you, Carlos. How is running a company different from last year, and how is fundraising different than the last 2 years?
Well, I think the general partner here wrote something last week where sometimes people forget about gravity, right? I mean, sometimes things that go up that fast they naturally come down, and I think the combination of macro factors that we had in the past few years with investors seeking alpha in alternative asset classes and venture capital being one of those, really exacerbated valuations and the flow of capital coming also from U.S. investors into Latin, right? Speaking in the context of Brazil. So with interest rates going up now and the macro and also geopolitical environment changing, right? A lot. Things have certainly changed a lot, which for us, it means that we're able to access investments in companies that were highly valued, maybe last year at discounted rates, which is good, right? So it's a natural correction. And at the same time, we do have to think as investors, and with the companies that we do work with, we end up bringing other investors involved with that. So there's a lot of analysis involved when we pick a company to do a liquidity program. And that change in the investment environment makes it so that a lot of masks have fallen in a way. Solid companies though are still getting funding, and for for us, I think it's something that shows that our ecosystem is also resilient and maturing in the sense that there are companies that are powering through this winter and are able to, buckle up, and perhaps some companies in Mexico City are going to think twice about having marble floors on their office in Polanco, which I thought was quite ridiculous when I visited. Other companies are busy building products, scaling, growing, and for those types of companies, that have a long view of, really disrupting, huge sectors like fintech, e-commerce, food tech. These companies are taking the long view. You look at LATAM and where we're at now and where we're going to be in 10 years, a little turbulence now, the cycle is 12, 18, 24 months. The companies that do make it out on the other end, I think are going to be just fine.
So Pedro, for you, what's the experience for you talking to investors? The dialogue different? Are you changing something in the business to, just have those conversations? So tell us about that.
I can tell about the last experience we had. So we raised the Series A last year, was like $7 million. We had a runway until the end of this year. So we decided at the beginning of this year, the first half, to we didn't feel ready to raise like a Series B by that moment. We just launching our pharmacy operation, just starting having unit economics about the fulfillment. So we understood that doing like a kind of extension from the Series A is going to be the best decision to expand our cash runway and deliver those inflection points weren't ready yet. And I was really scared because when I went out to reach out to investors was in February, and so it wasn't like now. And I learned something yesterday with Anderson, which is the fourth kind of lucky. I have never heard about that, but it's amazing. And it's when you are not giving up and the luck appears to you. So I think I cried like 2 or 3 times in the first half. And the reason I cried is because I was like fearing firing our team because of cash runway. And our business, it's a long-term business because we have been building like $500 million GMV network and with no revenue for like 4 years. But our investors were like long-term investors that are understanding that. But the market changed completely. And I was having a training with Bernardinho, Bernardinho from the volley national team of Brazil, with our leadership team today, 8 a.m. And he said something: you can complain, don't explain, just show up and do your job and do the best you could. And I think now the best, and he said it's a phrase of Tom Brady, it's not him. And he mentioned that. But Bernardinho is amazing. And I was really like, damn, I'm seeing Bernardinho speaking with our team today. And I was almost died like 6 months ago. And like LTS Investment, it's one of our first investors, the 3G Capital founders. And they intro us, Freeburg's family here in New York. They're like an agribusiness family, traditional family, but they invested in Braxton, Running, Stone, South Bay. And I think they understood that we can be like those guys, and they invested. And so the round happened, and we ended raising like 40% more than we wished with a 2-point higher valuation, but it was almost that. So it was hard, and people don't tell that. So I think, and what we need to do as operators is just to focus on delivering the core goals of your business. So having a clear, I think I received like 36 negative feedbacks in the first half, and it was amazing. Because like US venture capital firms and also national, they write like really good feedbacks. So please deliver conversion rate, deliver and get back to us. So we are doing our homework. It's good to understand what is your core metrics and then focus on that. André Stitch from Stone, he told me something. Don't put the airplane on air, not knowing where you're gonna land it now in that moment. So try to focus on what you need, what you know you need to do. So that's what we're trying to do now. Focus on the core. And of course, and Bernardinho also said something. It's good. It was amazing. Sorry. And he said something. It's important to fear to be worried about, because when you are worried about, you get prepared and you show off and do your job. So we were really worried about. I just raised capital, but I'm keep worried about. That's the first time I'm experienced that in my life. I don't know how much it's gonna like. So yes, don't complain. Just show up and try to do your best.
Thanks for sharing. So, should we open any questions for the audience? No?
I got a question.
Couple questions right there.
Rick, so I have a question with regards to as the Brazilian startups, as you move towards maturity and at the exit, perhaps via an acquisition, or even going IPO at one of the exchanges. Do you look into worldwide exchanges to see what is the most beneficial valuation and deal terms for you as a company and for your stakeholders, or do you only consider going public in the market in Brazil?
Should I start? I think I'm more like an old-fashioned like entrepreneur, so I really want to build a 100-year business, and I believe I'm in a market that I can do that because people will keep buying medicine forever. And I think today I serve like 3 million Brazilians annually, and I want to do that for 100 million Brazilians, so half of the market one day, and that's gonna make me really happy. And there's no finish line, so we're gonna keep pushing by that moment, and I hope to be a public company during that journey. So that's my focus. I don't know if it's gonna be possible. We need to work to do that. So that's our plan A. I really want to believe a 100 years business, and of course, in terms of raising capital, I learned from when we were really young and we're starting our first business. An old guy that I admire a lot, he told us, in Brazil it's tough, so if you have money in the table, just take it, because you never know when you're gonna have it again. So that's our mindset. So we do have money with good conditions. In Brazil, considering the environment, I think it's important until we have a better vision about how to deploy capital, etc. So I think good conditions is actually to have great investors. I think more important than good conditions is a good investor, someone that is aligned with you in your business model and your long-term vision. They're gonna push up you in your mindset to create a multi-billion-dollar business. So that's what we're looking for. With capital, it's what we need.
If I can add something to what Pedro said, it's very funny because in our case, to build a vehicle company in Brazil, it's like when we tried to raise capital 2 years back, it's impossible. Everyone say never exist any successful company of vehicle company in Brazil. So everyone say no. So the only chance we have, we got 2 strategic partners inside the company, and then we could show that it's possible. Then happened that now that we start to gain scale and people are seeing what we are doing, they come back and say, oh, now I can understand a little bit more. Can we talk? But answering your question, after I hear that, it's impossible. Of course, I'm looking. Of course, as Pedro said, it's not about only the money. It's about how can the investors can bring us to the next level, right? And then what is going on with electric vehicle? If you take the Nasdaq list and New York Exchange list of electric vehicles, it's huge. Right, and in Brazil, no one knows. So for me, it's natural to look into these investors and say, okay, how can you bring me to the next level? I think it's natural.
You want to comment, Carlos, about your IPO plans?
Well, I mean, our business is different, right? I mean, we're more and more steering toward an asset management business, and from the start, at Velvet, I guess my co-founder is half French, half Brazilian. I'm Peruvian, flamenguista, but I'm French. And at the end of the day, we always looked abroad, right? And we said, let's always have a global mentality from the start, right? From day one. And right now, we have a team of 15 people. We have 9 different nationalities. We've done a deal in India. We've done a deal in Mexico. All of this in the time frame of a little bit over a year now. So for us, really, I don't know if we'll make it all the way to IPO. Maybe an acquisition would make sense. There's a couple of potential of those in the room. So I think in the context of Velvet, for us, it's important to continue building a very globally minded team, and not be scared to, from Brazil, get on a plane and talk to investors in Europe. We're doing a roadshow in the Middle East now in November. Continue to explore deals in India. We have a local presence in Bangalore, because I do think that the quality of the people that we have in Brazil is Champions League level. We can compete with the best, and we can go out and bring our solution to other founders and other startups around the globe, because they have the same pain points, right? So I guess that's all I'll comment on that.
Okay, Ivana, we have only time for one more question, and then one last question from you. And then, because we are between them and lunch, okay? Keep that in mind.
Luca here. The question is just talking a little bit about your exits and your legacy to it, but how do you manage eventually the exits or the other latecomers that are going to be part of the journey? It's a long journey, especially if you have a good business and you want to really make an impact, towards your vision. But how have you maybe changed in your second, third time run with the new startups these agreements as far as the new people that are going to be part of the journey and catching up, to a lot of the things that you guys need to let go while you're still looking forward? How to manage eventually the relationship or others people exits that are different than yours?
So my experience with our exit with StoneCo, I think it's important to keep with a partnership culture. So people that are like joining the team to deliver the earn-out process or whatever is the next plan, they must be like with skin in the game and with like really thinking in the business and being partners of it. I think it's the best way to create that culture. So we have today in Mevo like 18 partners besides the founders, and in Vita, which we sold to Stone, we have also like a partnership of 25 key entrepreneurs and growing that number. So I think that's the best way to like keep the team engaged in delivering the business. So it's creating a partnership culture, a real partnership culture, not just giving them like stocks to feel as partners, but a real partnership. So I'm going to take care of you. You have this responsibility, and I have this one, and I think that's the best strategy. And I really, if possible, I don't want to like be acquired again, and I want just to keep building up our business forever. So that's my plan, but it can be a choice in the middle of the journey. And we learn also about like exit strategy. I don't know if I will like take all in equity or like support in cash. I think that you learn with the process. It's difficult when you have all your exit, for example, for an entrepreneur in stocks, because the market can go like it's now, and so it's something that you learn with the process. But I think it's important to keep a partnership culture with no finish line. I think that's the best strategy.
Okay, I do have one question that I think, it's a big focus of areas these days. It's about ESG. So I'd like you guys to comment your priorities in terms of sustainability, governance, and also social.
I'll give it the first crack. For us, and I think everyone in the team shares this. What we're doing as far as giving folks that have built outlier companies in the region, giving them some liquidity on the equity that they hold, it does have a greater purpose, and that greater purpose is to trigger cascade effects of more people becoming entrepreneurs. Right? When you look at statistically, the most successful founders in our region are founders that have been past operators themselves, right? So when you look at I think it's 37 unicorns in the region now, 3 out of 4 of those founders were prior operators, right? And a lot of them have, as part of their net worth, positions in prior companies where they've worked. And in order to take that leap of faith to start a company, to realize that they're probably not going to make a salary for a little bit while they validate their product and all that, having that extra bit of liquidity really helps. Right? So for us, the social aspect of having more entrepreneurship in the region, having more operators that can become founders and then create more jobs, which at the end of the day is the best way to create economic growth and innovation within the region. That's something that we don't take lightly.
Yeah, actually for our case it's very clear because we are already producing electric bike. So what we should do is like taking care not only putting the bike in the street, but also all the whole supply chain is actually adding some effort to the environment. But I think beside that, I think the thing that we become more proud in the company is like equality in this kind of industry of vehicle. 26% is women, and in our case already 42% of the company is women. And you can see our line of motorcycle production line, and you can see a lot of women. And for us it's kind of amazing. It's like even my mother, when saw the picture, said, I haven't seen so many women in doing this job. Yeah, so it's a great this one was the first target we went, and obviously the rest is coming together. Yeah, so we are a company that wants to change the world. So we need to change also the society and be more inclusive, and also the governance.
And I think in terms of impact, what we are doing is when we have a paper prescription, it's a problem because I think in 2015, the third cause of death in the U.S. were medical errors. So when we digitalize the prescription process in a healthcare institution, we are providing better outcomes. We just published research BD with a few hospitals, and we avoided 51% of bad drug interaction for the patients. And we also have a clear impact in the public sector in Brazil. For those who don't know, we have a unique system in Brazil. 70% of the population in Brazil goes to a public healthcare unit to have an appointment. And we have 3 projects with 3 cities. And we are invested by one of the most important non-profit organizations in Brazil, which is Albert Einstein. And we are creating an initiative inside Mevo now to try to deliver 1% of our revenue to the non-profit healthcare institutes in Brazil, because they don't have capital to buy simple things. So we're really focused on not only solving the problems of digital prescription and medical adherence in the private market, but also in the public sector, which is huge in Brazil. So that's what and we created a really nice thing. We created a paper thermometer, and we put that inside every hospital when it goes live. So the physicians and the patients start seeing how many paper prescriptions are not being more printed instead of a digital prescription. And actually 80% of over 3 million patients that receive our prescription are opening their prescription with the link we send, not the paper anymore. So I think that's also important.
Excellent. Can I do just a last question for them? What is next? So what is next for Mevo, VOLTZ, and Velvet? 20 seconds answers, okay.
I will keep with Bernardino advice, so don't complain, just show up and do your job. We just want to keep pushing, and I want to grow the Brazilian customer base we have from 3 million Brazilians for like 100 million Brazilians during the next decade. And we know what we need to do is just keep focused and like deliver the best product we could for the patients and for the physicians inside the healthcare institutions. We really focus on doing that better and better and better. And better.
Yeah. For our cases, actually, it's like you know, we have like 2 companies, right? One company is manufacturing, another company is like software, hardware, embedded, this kind of stuff. And yeah, so we need to very fast solve the supply chain disruption and start to fastly put mobiles on the street. And on the other hand, we have a lot of projects that is very important to definitely make the bike affordable and scale much faster. I believe that we need to be very strict to the plan. The plan is very clear. We have like a 10 years plan, so you just need to be strict and do it, execute. It's like this.
For us, it's been very simple from the start, and that's what we're going to continue to do, is attract the best people to our business so we can continue executing on the vision, which, you know, as bumpy as the road may get, as it tends to get, as long as we keep attracting the best people into our business, I think we'll be all right.
Good, thank you. Big round of applause for that.